Righto, so a week to go. So you've seen the dent man, he's been in. What that was about was just pushing around a little bits and pieces. There wasn't a dent as such, it's what I call a dent, but they're something you can't even see unless you get down and you're using the light to look around. And here, for instance, there was a couple of marks between this point and that point that could have even just been someone putting their hand on there while they're filling it up with fuel. There's a couple of marks here as well that might have corresponded with that. So what I did there was I took all the door trims off. He went through, the driver's door especially had 3 or 4 little marks in it, that quarter. So we've gone around. It's not perfect because they never are, but I wanted to make sure it could be as good as it could be. What I'm doing at the moment is I'm now going through with the light and I'm looking for any little marks in the paint that could effectively be as simple as, if I rub my thumb on there now, it would actually show, because it's so flat and so shiny, it doesn't take very much at all to mark it where you will see it. So I've got it masked up to keep all of the polish out of the window openings. Same here, because these are black. We've already cleaned all of those. I just want to make sure that I'm not getting anything into those and the petrol cap. And then I'm going to work through a range of products that, depending on what I'm trying to fix, could even be a little bit of light sanding. So this little denibber, it comes with a couple of caps. So at the moment that's got some 3000 on it. And then these stick-on ones, these range anything up to 3,000–4,000. So if I've got a deep scratch, or what I class as a deep scratch, so a light scratch that I want to take out, I can sand it with these. If I do the sanding, or if I've got something that's a little bit coarse, I'll go with the yellow pad. And I've got 2 options, like on the roof, for instance, I'd use this big fella. On the smaller areas, I'm just doing a small spot, I'll just use the yellow pad with the 45. So that's the cutters. Once I've got rid of the marks, and I do panel by panel, once I've got rid of all the marks off the panel, I'll then go to number 12 in the black, and I really like the black. They do it in black and white, and the black for the darker colours I really like. So I'll do that with a intermediate pad, like this one. Once again, I've got a big one and a small one. I'll work my way over. Once I've done that, I'll do that on a rotary machine. Once I'm happy with what I'm looking at, I'll then go to the orbital. So this one's a 12 mil. I've been finishing the other side off with the number 5. And on a bigger panel, I'll actually use that. So I'll put the foam pad onto my sander, and it's a 5 mil, but it works really good on the big panels. So you get that oscillation and not the swirls, so you don't get any swirl marks. Once I'm happy with the appearance of the whole thing, then I'll go to the final number 5 in the Polar Shine, and with the softest pad, and then do that. Once we do all of that, we end up looking like this other side. So I had my mate Dale come over last night to keep me company. A lot of this work I'll do when I'm on my own at night. So this side now is looking really, really slick. What we've got to do now is just go through the door jambs and make sure that I haven't got too much rubbish in there, because we'd pretty much cleaned most of that up. If it looks like we're doing it a bit backwards, that normally you'd polish all the outside of the car first. The car's been on the hoist for like 6 weeks, doing all sorts of cleaning, mechanical, bit of paint work, and it was sort of stuck there because we were waiting on the exhaust to go back on, just some issues. So I've left this until last, when I could get it off the hoist. So now I'm almost done. The bonnet's ready to go back on, and it was off really just for the ability to work easily on the car, and I've polished that day before yesterday. And the other thing that I've got a bit of footage there that Louise will probably lay over, we've made the decision to change the wheel centers. So I showed you where we changed the bolts, and you can see there how nice that's all come up, but we've actually machined the top off of the chute wheel center. And I had Steve Rich, a friend of mine, he's a hot rodder that's had some really cool cars. who's a machinist, machine those flat and then the recess for the sticker, so it looks a lot like the centre of what would be on a globe wheel. And that's what those forward centres are for, to go on the plastic cap. So I really like the look. I think it's come up really sweet. So we've got those done, everything's polished. The next thing now is just to get all this done, do the final detail. We'll get it back on the hoist, check underneath, and we're pretty much ready to load it up. What I'm going to do is, as soon as we get it all back together, we'll actually do some footage of the finished product, so we can round this episode out with the car as we see it, the best we can make it for MotorEx 2024. Well, here it is. Tomorrow the car goes in the trailer, heads off to Melbourne. Peter's going to take it down there. I'm going to head down later in the day with Dale to do the filming, so we're going to have some really cool stuff coming out of Melbourne next week. But for this week, it's been about getting this all finished. So I've had the car about 8 weeks. I would have liked to have had it for 12, but wasn't available to get it down to me. And it wasn't that I needed more hours to work on the car, it was just simply the fact that it's nice to have the car for longer, so you can leave it alone for a day or two, just to clear your mind about what you've done and where you're going with it, and not be in that position where I am now, where I'm tired, been pushing hard the last week to get everything finished that I wanted to do. And it really just comes down to having that bit of free space in your head sometimes. If you've got your own projects, you might find that you just get bogged down to the point where you don't even want to walk out in the shed. Well, with this, I don't have that option, because we had a time frame and it just meant working on the car, and I've been on it for 7 days a week for quite some weeks now. And a lot of that's not paid time, it's me trying to make this car the best I can make it. So what I'm going to do with Louise tonight is just walk around and show you some of the things that I like about the car. Would I build this car for me personally? Probably not. But it's not my car, I've built it for Peter, and it evolved in what he originally wanted to where we ended up. None of that I seen as a bad thing, it was just a little bit unusual to what I would normally do. Looking through some of the things we've done, and I've pointed out to you, is the wheel centers and all. I think now that whole wheel combo and the brake is just awesome. Just got a nice feel about it, really smooth. I think the badges tie in. I should go and turn the indicators on, Louise. Actually, I'll quickly do that. So we made those up, Darren and I, and Peter was involved. Actually, Peter did some of the efforts on that as well. So we had to put the LEDs in from the back, and then at the same time seal them up, so they've got like a two-part epoxy that goes in the strip to make those work. So I thought they were a cool little touch. I like the fact that it's got the stock mirrors and the door handles and the fuel cap. Some people don't like that, I do like it. And then we've gone with the chrome. Some of the little things that you may not be aware of, like through here, we've actually put a shadow line. We've cut the top of the pillar and re-welded it up so that this line along the top of the door flows through. And they're the little things that we do with our builds. All the little slots around the door handles have all been modified and changed so that everything lines up and looks nice. And there's a lot of hours in doing that, but when you look at the car, it looks stock, but you sort of go, why's it got such a smooth look? So there's some of the things we've done. Walking down the back, it's got the massive 20s on the back, 20x12s. And it looks a bit strange because there's no brakes on the outside, because it's in an independent rear end, and we'll get underneath it in a minute. You actually have that almost burnout car look with no rear brake. But what I wanted to show you here is we've actually tapered this differently. So that would normally be squarer. So we've tapered that up to meet with the bumper, and then modified the bumper as well. I don't like bumpers fully tucked where this is level with here. I like to still have a bumper, and so that it acts as a bumper. So we've changed the shape of that, we've changed the shape of the opening, and then I've moved the badges on the boot I think by memory they were normally up the top. I centered those. A lot of work in the body through here. So being an XC, it had the vents, but this shape to the boot, this normally is higher than this, so we actually cut the panel and lowered it down to get all this to sit flush and give it that sort of smooth look that I think it would probably have looked like in the clay modelling when they were originally designed. So I've tried to put that back into it by changing the shape of the factory panels. I'll just pop the boot. This car has got a big sound system in it with a subwoofer and all in the boot that you can't see. Oh, you need the right key out, this one. So we've got FG keys and XC. So it's all done, all smooth, all welded through here, all around the jams. And then big 100-litre fuel tank. And then in behind there, the battery sub box plus the amplifiers, and it's also got the purge tank for the emission control side of things. Tried to utilise, you know, the stock fittings, but move them around a bit and just make it all look a little bit nicer. And then all these panels up under here have all been modified. We've filled in all of the panels there where you'd normally see the skin. I'll grab a light, put on there. There's a massive amount of work up in here to get all that to look like that. So I like the factory hinge, but I just tidied them up, made them a bit straighter and a bit nicer. And the whole aim there is to have things that, when you're all done, work nicely. So that boot now, a little bit of polish on there still, but that all working good. You can see in the back here the parcel shelf. So the sub vents up through that centre box. So we needed to put something there because the car's got the FG seat belts. So the centre mount retractable normally is here, just one box on its own. So we made the full box, or the trimmers did. And that's got a vent that comes out of that sub box, and there's a vent on the other side. In a lot of cases you wouldn't even know that's there. Outside, that's probably the most of it. It's got, being a big block, it's got quite a large exhaust on it, and we'll see that when we get it up in the air. So if you come through here, Louise, you'll see that it's making all its usual noises. All of that's all working now. The ABS, it's all been sorted out. It's all working, and I find it quite funny when you open the door up, it comes up and tells you the door's ajar like it does on an FG. We've adapted. It's now got an Alpine head unit in it. When we first did it, it had a Pioneer, but Peter's changed it over to an Alpine now. And that all hooks up through the sound system. I might even try and get that going. I haven't had that going since the car's been back. I might do that. The steering wheel, it's an FG wheel, which gives us all the switches and all, but we got rid of the big airbag in the middle, and it looks now more like a BF. So I reshaped that, and then Simon from Elite Trim got that recovered. So it's all sort of our own sort of design and shape that works with it. Up front, the engine bay. It's been one of my traits that I've done for a while. So we body colour down into the bay, but then with a pin line. And then the pin line runs around, and then we go to the grey, and the grey runs all the way underneath. So it's what's classed as a Boss 9, so it's a big block Ford, Hemi-headed, injected from John Cassie in the States, and it makes over 700. And what we've been able to do, the reason we've got these little boxes here, this one's got the reservoir, so the overflow for the radiator, the washers, and also the power steer pump. And on the other side, and the reason that this came about, on the other side here, that actually houses the full electrics from the FG. So once you remove these, the pins, it actually gives you the full factory. So all of this is identical to an FG. So utilising the manual for the FG, you can actually work out all your fuses and relays. And I opted to do that because it keeps it very functional. So that's all your engine bay stuff. And then on the inside, you've got the same fuse box from the FG to run everything else. So, and the little clips on there are the actual pins and rubbers that hold the lids on an outboard motor, which we've found are quite tight and work really well. The brakes, the booster, we've put a little cover on there now. It was just had the plastic on it before. The car runs all FG ABS, so master cylinder booster, all of the dash, the whole lot's FG. So when you're sitting in the driving position, you're actually getting that full feeling you're sitting in an FG. And when it did the brake test for the engineering, the actual, in the test mode, rather than fading, they were getting better because the new brakes were actually bedding in. So it's got the Brembos that are fitted on the GTs, the 6-spot, and then on the rear it's got virtually the same style of PBR style brake on the centre mount, and we've been able to adapt all the sensors and all to operate the ABS. So Paul from Anything Racing's been able to get that auto operate. The engine's managed by the FG computers, so it runs the engine management system plus the 2 boxes inside and all of the electrics to make all of that work, including things like Darren and I cut the FG mirrors up and took all the internals out and put the FG mirrors inside these so that all the electric switches and all work for all of that. The trim was really a bit of a nightmare in the end, but we've managed to get a combination of XC to FG, and in doing that, these are all standard handles. We actually use the FG cable to come down to operate the XC locks, and this handles and all, we've taken the brackets off of the FG doors and bolted those into the XC, so all of these mechanisms and all actually pull on the door, not on the door trim. It's running the speakers, all the switches and all from the FG. And then down in here, all of this trim's been modified. It's a combination of FG and XC, and it's been covered in leather where it needed to be, and then pieces like this one here and these are all factory. So from a functionality point of view, the car can be maintained, used and maintained. And then if you come around in here, Louise, in the back of the door, you'll see there, we've actually utilised the FG, these boots and all from the FG as well. So we've cut those in because all of the wiring goes in all the doors to operate the electric windows, all through the switching and all from the FG. It's very hard to sort of tell you everything about this car in a short period of time because there's so much about it. And what we'll do is I'll get it up in the air in a minute and have a look in there as well. So in the back, once again we've tried to utilise, you know, it's obviously got the console and once again the switching, and then the rear is, it's actually a 5-seater and it runs all of the FG seat belts. And then when you look up, it's got the Alcantara hood lining and the genuine XC. So from the door belts up, it's pretty much XC, and then from there down, it's all FG. Sounds like a Ford. Righto, so I'll have a peek on the underside. So the guys up there have done a fair bit of work up at Brisbane, so that's Paul at Anything Racing. So they've actually got to a spring rate they're happy with now, and that was all to do with track time. Paul's actually very much into drivers, And in fact, it's working with one of the V8 supercar teams nowadays as well. And what we've got under here is that big block forward and then the ZF gearbox out of the FG. And what we managed to do there, by using the floor, we were able to use also the rear engine mount, which we just painted up. It's around the 2-piece tail shaft, and all of that centre mount and all's come from the FG, but it's all been beefed up, so it's got a lot heavier unis and those sorts of things, but it's basically in that same configuration. And then the exhaust, as you can see, is the D shape. And the idea there, the oval, is to get a bigger pipe, but still enable us to keep good ground clearance and also get through the tight areas like here. So I basically did all of the headers, and then Darren and I worked together to do all of those pipes. Heaps of pie cuts and things to get that through. The rear end is a Kugel independent rear, so that's out of the States again, and that comes through like that. We've spent a fair bit of time this time to detail it right up and make it come up to where it is. And as you can see, and I spoke about a minute ago, you don't get the brakes on the outside, it's all on the inside. It's all about unsprung weight. And then it runs a Ford 9-inch centre, and that centre is a strange centre. See the little logo up there somewhere, and it's running I think 411s by memory, with a Detroit locker in it. And then Phil from Fuel Works, Phil Kurgene, has done all the lines, and they run through the chassis rail and go out through those sponsons and pop out up the front. And then the front suspension is a Rodtech setup out of South Australia, and that runs a Commodore rack. And then we've been able to adapt the FG Falcon steering shafts and all to take it up into the steering column. And then there's just a whole lot of things going on. Sensors, it's got knock sensors up in here. It's got the sensor there for the ignition. And then because we're running power steer, air, lots of hoses, lots going on. But it all works now, and it's all ready to go on the trailer tomorrow to head off to MotorEx.